Have you ever looked at someone and wondered, what are they hiding from me? Why do some people radiate strength, while others seem fragile and submissive, yet secretly dangerous? Nietzsche believed that if you know where to look, you can read anyone instantly. Not through tricks, not through body language hacks, but through the raw psychological forces that shape every human being. Today, we'll uncover Nietzsche's 18 psychological truths, the dark insights that reveal what people truly are. And once you see them, you'll never look at human behavior the same way again. The will to power reveals desire. Nietzsche claimed that every human action is driven by one force, the will to power. Not survival, not morality, not even love, but the desire to dominate, expand, and assert control. When you watch someone speak, notice what they want to control. Do they crave admiration? Money, safety, influence, whatever they obsess over, that's their will to power made visible. Weakness disguised as morality. Nietzsche warned that what most call morality is often nothing more than the revenge of the weak. If someone insists endlessly on fairness, equality, or humility, ask yourself, are they truly virtuous, or are they disguising their own lack of strength? Behind moral language, you often find resentment.
Resentment, the poison of the powerless. Nietzsche's concept of resentment is key. It's the hidden hatred of those who cannot rise above. Watch for the subtle signs, the sarcastic remarks, the passive-aggressive jokes, the constant need to drag others down. These are not harmless quirks. They are the psychological scars of the powerless. Masks reveal more than faces. Nietzsche insisted that humans are actors wearing masks. But here's the paradox. The harder someone tries to wear a mask, the more it reveals what they are hiding. The overly humble person, they crave recognition. The overly confident leader, they hide fear. To read someone instantly, study the cracks in the mask, not the mask itself, fear of responsibility. Most people don't want freedom. They want escape from responsibility. Watch how someone reacts when given a choice. Do they step forward with clarity or retreat with excuses? That reaction exposes their core psychology more than any words ever could. Master-slave morality. Nietzsche divided humanity into two moralities, masters and slaves. Masters create their own values. Slaves adopt the values handed down by others. When you meet someone, ask yourself, do they define their own life, or are they parroting someone else's script? That one question tells you who they truly are. The drive for recognition, even the quiet ones, crave recognition. Nietzsche wrote that humans would rather be hated than ignored. So watch for the hunger in their eyes when they are overlooked. That desperate need to be seen reveals more than any speech. The lie of selflessness. Whenever someone boasts of being selfless, Nietzsche warned, you found a liar, or worse, a manipulator. True selflessness doesn't advertise itself. The one who declares it is usually looking to control you through guilt. The herd instinct. Most people don't think, they follow. Nietzsche called this the herd instinct. You can spot it instantly, the person who always cites what everyone else says, who shifts with trends, who fears standing alone. They are not guided by truth, but by the comfort of belonging. So ask yourself, if these truths are so obvious, why do entire societies still follow corrupt leaders, manipulative gurus, and destructive ideologies? Nietzsche's answer is chilling, because people fear freedom more than they fear tyranny. And once you understand this, you can not only read individuals, you can read entire cultures. Why do people cling to corrupt leaders, follow destructive ideologies, and even defend the very forces that exploit them? Nietzsche believed it comes down to fear. Not fear of pain, not fear of death, but fear of freedom. To understand this, we move deeper into Nietzsche's psychology. The next truths will show you not just how to read people, but how to see the invisible chains that keep them obedient. Fear of freedom. Nietzsche argued that true freedom is terrifying, because freedom means responsibility. No excuses, no authority to hide behind. So when you watch someone avoid making choices, when they'd rather obey than decide, you're watching fear of freedom at work. It's the foundation of blind obedience. Comfort in authority, linked to that fear, is the craving for authority. Most people would rather submit to a strong leader than carry the burden of self-rule. You can spot it instantly. The person who quotes gurus, celebrities, religions, or political slogans instead of speaking their own mind. Their psychology is outsourced. The slave's revenge. Nietzsche wrote that the powerless don't fight openly. They fight through morality, gossip, and guilt. If you see someone constantly moralizing against the strong, what looks like compassion is often a weapon. It's the slave's revenge against those they envy. The subtle art of envy. Envy is rarely confessed directly. Instead, it hides behind critique. Watch closely. When someone laughs at another's ambition, belittles success, or dismisses courage as reckless, you're seeing envy wrapped in disguise. Nietzsche warned that envy corrodes societies from within. The herd versus the creator. Nietzsche believed most people live as part of the herd, safe, obedient, unoriginal. But every once in a while, you'll encounter the rare opposite, the creator. The herd repeats, the creator invents, the herd obeys, the creator disobeys. When you meet someone who refuses to conform, you've seen the psychological mark of the creator, the one who threatens every system built on obedience. At this point, Nietzsche's insights become more than tricks to read people. They reveal why entire societies keep falling into cycles of manipulation. Think of history, charismatic leaders rise, demand obedience, and millions follow. Even when these leaders destroy nations, people cling to them. Why? Because the herd fears the uncertainty of freedom more than the certainty of chains. Nietzsche saw this pattern everywhere. He said the majority secretly want to be slaves because it relieves them from the burden of thinking, choosing, and standing alone. This is why corrupt leaders thrive. They don't need truth, they only need fear, envy, and obedience. And the crowd will provide it. The mask of the ideal. Nietzsche exposed how leaders manipulate. They offer ideals: justice, equality, purity, safety, faith, words so powerful that people surrender without questioning. When you see someone obsessed with the perfect ideal, look deeper. It usually hides a hunger for power and control. The psychology of followers. Nietzsche argued that followers are not weak by accident. They choose weakness because submission gives them comfort. When you notice someone always searching for a savior, always idolizing another, always afraid of standing alone, you're not seeing innocence. You're seeing the psychology of voluntary slavery. Nietzsche's truth cuts deep. People admire corrupt leaders because those leaders reflect the unconscious desires of the herd. The leader dares to express openly what the herd hides in shame: the lust for power, the hatred of responsibility, the craving for domination. The followers don't just tolerate corruption, they secretly admire it. Because in their hearts, they wish they had the courage to act without limits too. The seduction of strength, even when strength is brutal, even when it's cruel, people admire it. Nietzsche saw this as one of humanity's darkest instincts. The herd resents the strong, but also bows to them. When you notice someone who bends quickly before power, you've seen their entire psychology in one gesture: envy mixed with admiration, weakness mixed with submission. The eternal return of weakness. Finally, Nietzsche warned that this cycle never ends. Resentment, envy, obedience, submission. These traits repeat through history, like an eternal return. Corrupt leaders will always rise, the herd will always follow, and only a rare few will escape. And that is the final truth. Most people don't want to be read, because to be seen is to be exposed. But once you know these 18 truths, you cannot unsee them. So ask yourself, are you part of the herd, or are you the rare one who dares to stand apart? Nietzsche's psychology was never about reading others alone. It was about holding a mirror to yourself. The question is not just, how do I read people? The question is, what do they read when they look at me? You now know Nietzsche's 18 truths. But here's the darker question: what do these truths mean for the world you live in? Because if you stop at individuals, you miss the bigger picture. Nietzsche wasn't just describing psychology, he was exposing why entire societies collapse into corruption, why freedom never lasts, and why most people will never wake up. The cycle of obedience. Nietzsche observed that humans move in predictable cycles. A strong individual rises, challenges the herd, creates new values, and for a moment, freedom and creativity flourish. But then the herd swarms in. They copy the creator, twist his ideas, and eventually turn his philosophy into dogma. What began as liberation becomes another prison. Look around, religions that started with rebellion now enforce obedience. Political revolutions that promised freedom now demand conformity. Nietzsche's cycle is alive everywhere. The comfort of chains, why does this cycle repeat? Because the majority secretly prefers chains to freedom. Nietzsche believed that freedom is a heavy burden. It demands thinking for yourself, taking risks, and standing alone. The herd wants safety, not sovereignty. So whenever someone comes along promising order, justice, or salvation, the herd bows down, grateful for their chains. The psychology of the herd. To read people at scale, look for herd psychology. It shows itself in three ways. Fear of difference. The herd attacks anyone who doesn't conform. Craving for belonging. They obey because being alone terrifies them. Projection of hatred. They need an enemy to unite them, so they create villains, scapegoats, and outcasts. The next time you see a mob online, a movement in politics, or a mass trend spreading like wildfire, you're watching herd psychology in action. The seduction of leaders. Nietzsche revealed why corrupt leaders are worshipped. They embody what the herd secretly desires, but cannot admit. The herd envies strength, but cannot display it. The leader does, so they admire him. The herd wants revenge, but lacks courage. The leader delivers it, so they cheer. The herd hates responsibility, but craves direction. The leader commands and they obey. Leaders don't create followers. Followers create leaders by demanding someone to rule them. This is why Nietzsche's philosophy feels so unsettling. It shatters the comforting illusion that corruption is an accident. It's not. Corruption thrives because people want it, not consciously, but deep down in the psychology Nietzsche exposed. The enemy of truth. Another key insight. The herd doesn't hate lies, they hate uncomfortable truths. Watch closely. If someone exposes corruption, selfishness, or manipulation, the herd will attack the truth teller, not the liar. Why? Because truth threatens the illusions they depend on. Nietzsche argued that humans prefer beautiful lies to harsh truths. That's why prophets, philosophers, and thinkers are almost always persecuted in their own time. Resentment at scale. Remember resentment, the hatred of the powerless. At the individual level, it poisons friendships, families, relationships. But at the societal level, it becomes ideology. Movements built on envy and resentment spread like wildfire. They promise fairness, equality, justice, but behind the mask lies a single desire: to tear down anyone who dares to rise above. Nietzsche saw this as the hidden driver of history. Resentment builds armies, topples empires, and fuels revolutions. But it never creates, it only destroys. So here's the uncomfortable question. If these truths are real, what does it mean for you? Because Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't just about judging others. It was about confronting the reality inside yourself. The mirror of power to read people. Nietzsche believed you must first read yourself. Ask, where does my will to power hide? Do I disguise weakness as morality? Do I envy those who rise above me? Do I crave safety over freedom? If you deny these truths in yourself, you'll never see them clearly in others. The very act of self-deception blinds you to reality. The few who break free. Nietzsche admitted that most will remain prisoners of the herd, but he held out hope for the few who break free, the ones who choose the path of the creator, not the slave. They accept the burden of freedom. They define their own values. They embrace truth, even when it hurts, and because of that, they can read others instantly, because they are no longer deceived by the masks of morality, authority, or herd approval. Nietzsche's psychology teaches us this chilling reality. Corruption, manipulation, blind obedience. They're not mistakes of history. They are the natural state of human beings, trapped in fear, envy, and submission. The only question left is, will you remain part of the cycle, or will you become one of the rare few who steps outside it? You've now seen how Nietzsche's 18 psychological truths expose the inner workings of individuals and entire societies. But here's the final step. What do you do with this knowledge? Because knowing how to read people means nothing. unless you also know how to protect yourself and how to rise above the traps Nietzsche revealed. Seeing the hidden game, the first use of Nietzsche's truths is simple awareness. Once you know that every person is driven by the will to power, you no longer take words at face value. Every compliment, every insult, every moral judgment hides a power play. The moment you see the game, you stop being manipulated by it. When someone preaches humility, ask whose ambition are they trying to suppress. When someone praises equality, ask whose strength are they trying to weaken. When someone calls for justice, ask do they want truth or do they want revenge. This shift in perception is the beginning of psychological mastery. The armor of detachment. Nietzsche believed the strong don't waste energy on resentment. They don't let gossip, criticism, or moral judgment control them. To read people instantly, practice detachment. Observe, don't absorb. When you see envy in someone's smile, you don't take it personally. You recognize it as resentment. When you hear the herd shouting, you don't feel pressured. You see their fear of freedom. Detachment is armor. It allows you to see clearly without being pulled into the chaos. The creator's path reading people is not just defense, it's also offense. Nietzsche's ultimate message was not cynicism, but creation. He warned that it's easy to fall into endless critique, to see only manipulation and corruption. But the higher path is to become a creator of values. Creators don't just read others, they inspire, disrupt, and reshape the herd's illusions. They don't submit to morality handed down by the weak. They forge their own path, and because of this, they stand outside the cycle of obedience. The shadow within, but here lies the most unsettling truth. You carry the herd within yourself, the craving for safety, the temptation to resent, the hunger for recognition, the fear of freedom. Reading others is useless if you refuse to confront your own shadow. Nietzsche warned that denying your darker impulses doesn't destroy them. It only makes them stronger, hidden, and more dangerous. The path to mastery is not pretending to be pure. It's acknowledging your shadow, owning it, and channeling it into strength. Nietzsche's insights about leaders, followers, and the herd are not just theory, they are prophecy. Look around today. Politics turned into cults of personality, social media mobs destroying reputations, resentment disguised as virtue, and leaders exploiting fear. Nothing has changed. The cycle Nietzsche described is alive and thriving, but the question is, do you remain a spectator, or do you step outside the play? Practical reading, 3 levels. To make this knowledge usable, Nietzsche's philosophy can be broken into 3 practical levels. Individual level, observe will to power in personal interactions. Ask, what does this person crave? It's rarely what they say, it's always what they reveal through their actions. Social level, watch for herd dynamics, conformity, scapegoating, moral grandstanding. These patterns expose who follows and who leads. Cultural level, step back and ask, what illusions keep this society together? Once you see the ideals propping up obedience, you understand why corruption survives. With these 3 lenses, you can read anyone, one person, one group, or even an entire nation. The courage of solitude. Nietzsche's final challenge was solitude. He believed that to see clearly, you must first stand alone. The herd clouds judgment. Leaders manipulate perception. But solitude strips away illusions. It's in silence, away from the crowd, that you can finally read others and yourself without distortion. This is why Nietzsche himself lived much of his life in isolation. He knew that solitude is not weakness, it is clarity. So here is the final takeaway. To read anyone instantly, you must accept truths that most people will never face. That humans are masks hiding hunger. That morality often disguises envy. That freedom terrifies the majority. That corruption thrives because people want it. But if you dare to face these truths, you gain something rare, vision. You see beyond words, beyond masks, beyond illusions. And once you see, you can never unsee. Nietzsche didn't write for the herd, he wrote for the few.